Let me just paint the picture. 7 years for K'ing your own friend and trying to evade police by begging your mom to buy you a plane ticket in order for you to hide out in Portugal. 15-year-old Pharrell Garcia had lost his life in the most brutal and heinous fashion in a case that produced no winners. Now, this was a case where two people were friends, good friends. I mean, a friendship that had spanned from primary school, but the two teenagers may have fallen out due to jealousy that could have stemmed from messaging a girl. Now, reports say that Pharrell Garcia and his friend had been messaging the same girl. They had not met the girl in person, but they exchanged thousands of messages with her. And on the day of the blading, they actually told the same girl that they had planned to scrap, because both teenagers considered this online girl to be their girlfriend. It was also said that Pharrell had said that he was going to smoke the 16-year-old teenager, saying that he was just a nerd. And unfortunately, Pharrell Garcia was ultimately on the losing end, and he would actually lose his life. To be blunt, at 15 years old, you have not developed consequential thinking. You can't process the ramifications of your actions. So, when Pharrell and his unnamed K had agreed to meet up and settle their differences in a scrap, things took a bad turn. According to reports, Pharrell and his friend had brawled in Stellman Close in Hackney just after 4 p.m. on July 23rd of last year, being 2024. They actually scrapped at the Hackney Park. Now, Pharrell had ultimately been bladed once by his former friend. Now, some may not agree, but that wound would have to be inflicted with intent, as Pharrell had been bladed in the heart. Now, even after Pharrell had been bladed, he was still then chased by his friend who clutched the blade. Despite being in immense pain and, of course, losing a lot of red, Pharrell, who was panicked, scared, frightened, and, of course, probably had thousands of different things running through his head, probably did not think that he was going to die. But he knew his friend was going to blade him again, because the friend still had the blade in his hand as he tried to hunt down Pharrell. But sadly, Pharrell couldn't run any further, and his legs gave out and Pharrell had crashed to the ground. When Pharrell's friend saw Pharrell collapsed right there and then, rather than call for help or dial 999, the 16-year-old teenager turned his back and decided to flee the scene. He also got rid of the blade. Now, Pharrell's friend implicated himself in the crime and showed that he knew he had done something very serious, because he messaged that same girl that was speaking to both Pharrell and him in the aftermath, saying, "I just think I K'd Pharrell. I bladed him in the heart by accident, but was meant to blade him in the leg." As Pharrell lay on the ground in critical condition, his uncle and grandmother rushed to the scene after being told what happened. Now, they watched in horror as paramedics and other emergency staff worked on Pharrell at the roadside, and tragically, there was nothing that they could do. Pharrell was pronounced dead at the scene. Again, this was only a 15-year-old teenager that was in way over his head. He thought that he was going to win in a scrap with his friend, and again he lost. So when the unnamed K was arrested, not at his home address, even though the police did go there, which he wasn't there anyway, so police ended up going to a family friend's home, and there he was found. Now, he did admit to blading Pharrell Garcia and did K his former friend, but in a pre-prepared statement, the offender explained it was self-defense. The offender claimed that while the two teenagers met up at the park in Hackney, Pharrell had brought with him a multi-tool. During the scrap, the offender managed to get his hands on that same multi-tool, open it up, and then use it on Pharrell in order to save his own life. That's how scared he was of Pharrell. He also told police that he did not mean to K him. However, when police investigated the offender and the crime, police noted that there was evidence the unnamed K had an eerie fascination with blades after police recovered over 43 videos and images dated on the 16th and 17th of July alone of the offender posing and playing with blades. Police also noted that the days leading up to the Pharrell and his former friend had spoke over Snapchat and continued to call each other names and continued to goad each other, saying, "Watch what happens when we meet up." And of course, these messages were relayed back to their online girlfriend. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, police also says that when they investigated the offender, they realised that he may have tried to flee the country because he messaged his mum and told his mum, "I can't come back home tonight, and to please get rid of certain things in my room." He also begged and pleaded for his mum to buy him a one-way ticket to Portugal, which of course didn't come into fruition. So, in court, the unnamed friend was told by a judge that he was the embodiment of a dangerous offender and the claims of self-defense was unproven. Judge Philip Kaz says that Pharrell Garcia was a child of 15 when he was bladed to the heart in broad daylight in a residential area in Hackney. He managed to run a short distance before collapsing and dying on the pavement. Pharrell's family and friends, and all those who knew and cared for him, are utterly devastated. That Pharrell died in a public and in such shocking circumstances is a terrible tragedy, especially accounting for the fact that Pharrell and this offender were known to each other. They were friends since primary school, and all evidence shows that the two teenagers had fell out over a girl that they were speaking to whom they had never met. The judge went on to say that you were fascinated with GUNs and also blades. Your use of social media was totally out of control, and I'm sure you took a blade to the scrap even if you did not use it. Now, for his crimes, the unnamed teenager was told that he had been found guilty of manslaughter. He was also told that he would be jailed for a minimum term of just 7 years. 7 years for taking a life. But there would be an extended license to play that would last for 5 years for what was described as dangerousness. Now again, 7 years for taking a life of your own friend and then trying to evade police. If his mum would have brought him that one-way plane ticket to Portugal, guaranteed the 16-year-old teenager would have been on that flight and he would not have came back to the UK. He would have become a wanted man, and because of his immaturity, he probably would have still continued to use social media and probably goad his friend and big himself up and say, "I'm the person that killed Pharrell Garcia," because he actually told the girl that they were both speaking to that he thinks he had killed his own friend. So the question is 7 years for taking a life justifiable? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Just imagine for a moment if this was your family member, if this was your child, your brother or sister, and then sitting in a gallery and listening to the verdict be read out. You get told that justice will be served, and again the offender has been found guilty of manslaughter, but then you hear a minimum term set at 7 years. Stay safe, safe.